Maddie Rigsby reminds me of Martha. Maddie isn't a real person, of course. However, she's quite real in many of our lives. She populates the fictional town of Lystra, North Carolina, in Clyde Edgerton's endearing novel, Walking Across Egypt. I hope you've read it. If you live in North Carolina, you need to read it. Maddie is 78 and lives by herself in her brick ranch home. She's been alone since her husband Paul died of a heart attack 5 years ago. Maddie is what you'd call very independent. But she is, after all, 78, and as she keeps having to explain to people, is slowing down. Though her neighbor, Laura Swanson, is always quick to point out that Maddie does cut her own grass, plant her own tomatoes and butter beans, and run the Lottie Moon Missions Fund Drive at the Lystra Baptist Church. On this particular day, Maddie had just finished her lunch and stacked her dishes beside the sink. She'd gotten into the habit of not washing her dishes right after lunch. She waited until all my children was over. Nobody knew. If anybody ever found out that she both watched that program and didn't clean up right after she ate, she didn't know what she would do. But why shouldn't she sit down for an hour a day after dinner and do something just for herself? Why, Laura sat around the house all day watching soap operas, and then went as far as to talk to people about it. Laura's watching so much television was one reason that when she went on her daily walk, she carried that pistol in her hand under her Kleenex. Maddie glanced at the clock. It was 1 o'clock on the dot. She walked into the den, bent over, and clicked the TV on. Forgetting that Viola Yates had come by that morning to collect her dingy chair bottoms and cover them with a fancy new oilcloth, she slowly walked backwards, still bending over toward the rocker behind. Her left hand reached behind to find the arm of the rocker. Ah, the commercial New Blue Cheer was still on. She hadn't missed anything. She had started sitting down when a mental picture flashed into her head. The chair without a bottom. Her leg muscles had already gone lax. She was on the way down. Gravity was already doing its job. She continued on past the customary stopping place, her eyes fastened to the New Blue Cheer box on the TV screen, her mind screaming, "No!" wondering what bones she might break, wondering how long she was going to keep going down, down, down. In a straight line now were Maddie's eyes, her knees, and her favorite character, Erica's face. And behind her, Lord have mercy, behind her were the lunch dishes, still stacked on the sink for all the world to see. Maddie reminds me of Martha. I think Maddie reminds me of Martha because both women were rather obsessed with superficial appearances. Martha knew her role, and she carried it well. She knew how to put out a spread when company was coming. But she wasn't used to having so much company as on that day when Jesus and all his disciples showed up on her door. But nevertheless, she played the role of a gracious host to a T. And it is indeed an important role. Welcoming everyone with a smile and making everyone feel at home while she dashed back and forth to the kitchen to check on the roast lamb and ice the cake. Normally she could do all this without thinking, but today was different. Normally she would have help from her sister, Mary. Mary wasn't quite the housekeeper or the cook, but she was. But Mary was good at following instructions. But today was different. Mary was not being attentive to her role as host, much less to her role as a woman. In fact, Mary was being downright shameful. When Martha came out of the kitchen, towel in her hand and hand on her hip to solicit some help, there Mary was sitting on the floor with all the men, sitting in lotus position, listening attentively to every word Jesus was saying. At first, Martha was embarrassed for her sister Mary. And then Martha became embarrassed for herself. It was one thing for Mary to behave with such brazen impropriety, but quite another thing to do it in their own home and besmirch her big sister's image to boot. It was at that point that Martha became angry. But what was she to do? Mary never listened to her anyway. So Martha decides to appeal to a higher authority. Tell her to help me, she blurts out to Jesus. Sounded more like a 5-year-old than the mature woman that she was. But Martha does not get the response that she hoped for from Jesus. Instead of challenging Mary's behavior, Jesus challenges Martha's. Martha, Jesus says, you're worried and you're distracted by many, many things. But there's need of only one thing. Mary's chosen the better part, and I'll not take that from her. But like Martha, we're also distracted, aren't we? We're so distracted by cultural distance from this story and distracted by the busyness of our own lives that we're apt to miss the point. The point that we're not bound by expectations. We're not bound by cultural expectations or by our own. And that is very, very good news. In our much more egalitarian world, we're likely to see this story as merely a squabble between sisters, rather than as a commentary on cultural roles and expectations. In sitting down at Jesus' feet, Mary was like Rosa Parks sitting down at the front of the bus. Mary was claiming her right and her ability to sit with the men. To sit with the men and learn from a master teacher in a way that only men in that culture were allowed to do. Mary was culturally expected to be in the kitchen. But that day, she chose not to be distracted by cultural expectation. That day, Mary chose to do the one thing that she perceived to be needed. She chose to feed her desire to learn and deepen her spirituality, no matter what her culture told her she was supposed to be doing. She chose the better part, and the radical teacher, Jesus, chose to affirm her decision. And notice that when Jesus responded to Martha, he didn't criticize Martha for choosing something different, I think. Rather, he mainly chastised Martha for not allowing Mary to choose what was for herself the better part. Many, hearing this story, also find a dichotomy being drawn between those those who meditate and pray, and those who are worker bees, as if one role might be important and the other not. And then they understand Jesus to be ranking meditation as the more important activity. Doing is less important than being. Doing can lead to busyness and to the sense that we earn our own worth. Simply being acknowledges our dependence on God and allows us to find our solid center where the Spirit dwells, or so the sermon goes. And that's a sermon I've preached before myself. But this time around, I'm noticing something different in this story. After all, Jesus taught about the importance of hospitality to the stranger. And in the text that comes just before this one in Luke's Gospel, the text that we read together last Sunday, Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan, and he praises this doer as the hero of the story. So perhaps Jesus is not so much setting up a dichotomy between being and doing, as Jesus is reminding Martha and us that we're constantly being called to do the hard work of discernment in each moment of our lives. Discernment as to what is the most needed thing, and then to give ourselves fully to it. In our multitasking culture, this is an important word for us to hear. It is so tempting to be listening to a friend and making out a mental grocery list in our heads, being fully present to neither the friend nor to the groceries. Or admiring a flower in our garden while planning tonight's dinner party, being fully present to neither the beauty before us nor to the task ahead of us. Likewise, we can be marching in a justice rally, aware of our depleted souls, but unable or unwilling to stop and center ourselves for the journey, being fully present to neither the needs of the marginalized nor to our own need for replenishment. We don't know how Martha responded to Jesus' admonition to become more self-aware and to notice what was most needed in the moment. Maddie Rigsby from Lystra, however, after being rescued from her bottomless rocker, just so you know she didn't stay stuck there, Maddie showed amazing ability to let go of social expectation and to nurture and stand up for a troubled young man who appeared one day out of the blue on her doorstep needing some help, even when he challenged her notion of exactly who she could be a grandma to. Maddie discerned what was the one thing needed, and she set herself to the task. So now, we're the ones left in the story. What is the one thing needed in our lives? Did you most need to come to church this morning? Or did you need to sit on your deck and read the newspaper? Make it a conscious choice. Both are needed. Is your heart crying out for those being abused by governmental policy? Or is it yearning for some quiet meditation and yoga? Both are needed. What do you need in this moment of your life? Do you need to engage a conflict or to step back from a conflict? These are not mutually exclusive choices, mind you. None of these are mutually exclusive choices. But you may need to engage the one thing needed in this moment so that you have the strength and the desire to engage the needed thing in the next moment. Friends, so often in our busy lives, we move from task to task and from thing to thing, and sometimes engage several things at one time, without ever having an awareness of what is needed in the moment. There are so many things to address in life, Jesus says to us. But most of the time, there is only one thing needed. This story makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if perhaps the joy comes in giving ourselves completely in each moment to that one thing. Peace and joy to all of you and your discernment. Amen.